Good afternoon. My name is Lorena Mohr, head of science here at the German Embassy, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all here for the 84th edition of the Cairo Climate Talks. The Cairo Climate Talks, for those of you who don't yet know us, is a very unique German-Egyptian environmental platform. We're existing now since 11 years. And in the last 11 years, we've been busy bringing together stakeholders from government, from civil society, from the private sector to raise awareness and find solutions for the pressing climate problems and challenges that we have lying ahead. Today, our topic for this discussion is the COP of implementation, women-led solutions to climate change. Implementation is the word that we hear everywhere, at every booth and at every event. We want to see how we can move ahead from making pledges to really implementing things on the ground. But what I think we sometimes forget is all the implementation that is already happening on the ground. The projects, the work that we see by different organizations, social enterprises. And so today, this is what we want to look at. And we want to look at it from a very unique perspective. We want to look at the work that these fantastic women here on the panel with me are doing. Women and girls are the ones that are disproportionately affected by climate change. But of course, they're not just victims to climate change and to extreme weather, but they are the ones that are finding and innovating solutions. So today's discussion will present to us how women in Egypt are leading concrete climate action on the ground as founders of social enterprises, environmental organizations, or as policymakers. And before diving into discussion, it is now my great pleasure to announce Dr. Heike Henn. She's the Director for Climate, Energy and Environment at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. She's been working in the field of development cooperation for over 30 years, and she will give us a short welcome to this panel. Dr. Henn, please.
Good afternoon. I was looking for something to press, but there's nothing to press here. So it's such a pleasure to have the chance to open this exciting event. I think this is really, the issue is so close to my heart, and having the chance only briefly to talk to some of you before this event starts, I'm really excited to stop talking and listening to you. So thank you so much for having me here. It's really a great pleasure because what my dear colleague already mentioned, I think climate, the necessity to act is evident for all of us. This is why we are here. And women can really be not only part of the solution, but lead the solutions. And this is what your experience and your work is about. So, we, from the German perspective, also think it's good to have a feminist perspective to development policy and foreign policy. This is what our new government announced. So why is feminist leadership in climate policy so important? Because the climate crisis, on the one hand, is not gender neutral. Because the impacts of climate change deepen existing inequalities. People who are disadvantaged, and this can be gender, it can also be age, race, class, or income, are particularly affected. And at the same time, they are not sufficiently included in solutions to climate change. Today I was sitting on one panel, and before my panel were two others at the same event. One was only one woman among 6 representatives. The second panel was men only. And then there was the third where I was also on the panel. So women have to be part of the decision making, of the discussion, of the solutions. But women face structural barriers. often also in practical terms, they have no access or no easy access to banking or insurance products, and also to land rights. Only 15% of women have land rights. And this makes women much more vulnerable also to the impacts of climate change. So the roots for this injustice lie really in the structures often of societies. And at the same time, women and girls in their diversity are important knowledge bearers and land managers. They are also, like all of you, often in the forefront of the climate movement and action. And when I mention the diversity that women and girls bring into the discussion, I think we from the German government and the feminist development and foreign policy perspective believe that diversity in all its forms brings a different perspective, necessary new solutions to the table. And therefore, really, we have to interact with all areas of society. And I could go on with this message coming very clearly. We need women around the table. You all are important agents for change when it comes to mitigation, to deal with also the effects of climate change. And we need to recognize the role of women and all the necessary rights and changes we have to make, that women have rights, representation and resources for dealing with climate change, but let me add, way beyond. So what we are doing within the feminist foreign policy and feminist development policy is really promoting this rights, representation and resources. For the BMZ, the ministry are working in, we have the objective that 93% of all our programs have to have a direct or indirect link to promoting women. So 93% of 100%. So that's quite a lot we want to achieve by 2025. We are working also within institutions and structures like the multilateral development banks, looking at institutions like the Green Climate Fund. Why not having more women on the board of these institutions? And we support different initiatives also, just to name the Gender Center of the Injury Resilience Initiative, or we are member of the Global Alliance for Care, because all of the care work that women are doing. So we are working closely with many civil society organizations and grassroots organizations. And you will represent also different groups of the society. You represent different backgrounds and you focus on different areas for action, politically, in communities, with grassroots movements. And I'm really looking forward to your discussion, to learn more from your perspective. And we will have, in the next week, more ministers coming in again. And from the German side, a couple of female ministers are coming in. Actually, 3 of them, out of 3. So that's quite a good percentage. This is, I mean, I'm not talking from the German perspective, but this is really, we need all perspectives around the table to have different approaches when we have conflicts, to have a different view on what is the cause of a problem, and also finding multiple solutions for problems that are also multidimensional. So thank you so much for your hard work. And we're looking forward also not only for today's events, but also to the events coming up with all our female ministers next week. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hen, for these welcoming words. It's now my pleasure to introduce our 5 panelists to you. Starting on my right, I have Amira Sabel. She's a member of the Egyptian Parliament. She's a long-standing friend and supporter of the Cairo Climate Talks, which we very much appreciate. And she's very active in the field of environment. Then moving forward, we have Farah Kamal. She works at Daima. That's a social enterprise working in eco-education with very interesting approaches, which she will be sharing more later on. Sorry. Then here we have Mana Ramadan with us. She's the co-founder and head of research and development at Ben Lastic Egypt. As you can guess from the name, Ben Lastic is a social enterprise that works towards the goal of banning single-use plastic. Then we have Reda Ahmadine with us from the Arab program manager at the Arab Network for Environment and Development, RAED in short. That's the largest network here in the MENA region that's really working on with grassroots activities in the field of environment. And also the first UNFCCC accredited organization here in Egypt. And she is not here alone, but she has also brought women from the projects that she's working on with her, who will be sharing the work that they're doing directly. And then last but not least, we have Salma Al-Lakani. Sorry, the flies here are very aggressive. She's the shop founder and community development manager at Very Nile, another social enterprise that works towards cleaning the Nile basin and in the same time involving the local communities, the local fishermen in creating value chains from cleaning the Nile. So thank you all once again for being here. I would now like to kick off the panel with a short general question to all of you. We're all really keen to hear a bit more on the work that you are doing. You, I think, are part of a generation of female climate activists that we see everywhere in the world. We all know Greta Thunberg. In Germany, we have Luisa Neubauer. And here we have you as women blazing the trail in this field. So I would like to know, what exactly are you or your organizations doing to protect our environment? And what climate problems are you trying to tackle? And I would like to start with Amira, please.
Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be chairing the Climate Talks because it has been inspiring me for actually a long time, and I'm a good follower of what the German people are trying to keep us tuned with regarding the collective environmental efforts to save our planet. So regarding my work as a parliamentarian in that issue, last year, this is my 3rd year in the parliament, in my first term, and last year I managed to introduce to the parliament the first ever Egyptian and one of the first in the Arab world bills towards combating food waste. And food waste has a lot to do with climate change when we talk about methane and the emissions. And actually, because I am the vice president also of the Egyptian Social Democratic Party, it tunes with social justice. Because in Egypt, the amount of food that is wasted per person is 50 kilograms a year, given that we are a country with 32% of our population under the poverty line. So there was a big gap in the legislative process and the framework on how to jump in and fit for that and try to find a solution that works for the good of everyone, for applying justice, social justice, for actually preventing more of food waste and for doing something regarding the environment. Luckily, it has been referred to the relevant committees, and there are discussions happening now between the different stakeholders at the entities, the governmental entities and the stakeholders, and I hope your prayers would count so that it would move forward to the next legislative process. Also, just 2 days before coming to here, I managed also to introduce to the parliament a draft bill on climate change and adaptation to its effects. And this is as well the word climate change. We don't have it in our Egyptian legal framework. It's not in the legislations. We have several other legislations. Was it for investment? Was it for the environment? And many others which regulate the framework, but the mentioning of climate change, the mentioning of decarbonization, regulation, of carbon tax, of reducing our usage of plastic bags, and even to authorize a factory to get its license when it has a certain kind of emissions. This is not there in the legislative framework, and I'm actually proud that with the collective efforts of everyone, because I'm also happy that most of the ladies on the panel, I know them one by one, and I have run through many discussions with them regarding how we can collect the efforts towards real action and climate change. And as a coming from a social democracy background, I believe that, yes, everyone has a part, but everyone also has to act upon the part which has been historically causing what we are in right now. So the Global South should stand on a certain level of cooperation to defend their cause in that. And I hate it when I hear the words grant or when I hear the word debt. It's not like that. It should be a collaborative process, because actually and historically it's the developed countries which are responsible for such emissions, but yet we are tuned to the pace. We are very willing to put a solution to the narrative and to do our part, either as legislators or the beautiful, amazing ladies who are going to talk about their part from the NGOs and the different walks of life. I just want to say that also we have to oversee as parliamentarians the financing and the budgeting systems of our governments, so that we would ensure that there is a real transition happening toward this green economy and green implementation. I think Egypt has been doing some great progress in that, but we always push for more. I'd leave the floor then to my
Thank you, Amira, for that. And you touched on many important points, and also showing how you are working together with these different enterprises and organizations. So that's fantastic to hear. I would then go over to you, Farah.
So hi, I'm Farah. I work with a social enterprise that does eco-education through experiential activities. We've been working, we are a women-led organization, a women-founded organization. And not unfortunately, but we are overwhelmingly female. We believe in diversity. It just happens to be, like you said, that women are very, very likely to pick up the cause, be very enthusiastic about not only environmental issues, but also about education, which is what we focus on. We facilitate experiences for people to connect with nature and learn about natural phenomena, and threats to our ecosystems come after that, honestly, because we honestly believe that if you don't have a relationship with nature that is built on love, then stressing you out with all the threats will just make you create more distance between you and those things. And finally, we teach women-founded discipline called biomimicry, which is about looking at nature's wisdom and its learnings from 3.8 billion years of evolution, and trying to see how we can mimic and learn from those strategies to make our world more locally attuned, to make our world more suitable for both our needs and our fellow earthlings' needs. So yeah, we work a lot with local communities. Our activities are usually in the form of a journey or an experience in nature. And often when we're doing that, we're being hosted by our local communities. Just last month, we were working with 2 schools, international schools in Cairo, people that have no relationship with nature. A few kids were afraid of the dark. A lot of them are afraid of insects. A lot of them are afraid of getting dirty. And what we do usually is we let the local community host us for at least some of our experience. A lot of the time, the partners, just because we are women on the team that we end up working with, are other women, because they are more comfortable working with us, more comfortable talking to us. I honestly love that, because these are women that are from these local environments, they can become what we're working on now, is trying to teach them, to facilitate, to come up with their own activities, so that they are the ones that are representing their local indigenous culture and their local spaces. Because a Cairene coming to Marsa Alam and talking about environmental threats is not ever going to be as impactful or as respectful as someone from the local indigenous culture talking about their own experiences. And instead of translating, we're hoping to build that skill set so that they can represent themselves. But we also have to be very mindful of the fact that women in the places that we work with aren't always comfortable, or it's culturally not always appropriate for them to do that. So where possible, when we can find an ambassador, that's who we're building the skill set for, or building activities with, so that we can at least, if not have them represent themselves, make sure that what we represent is learned from them and facilitated by them and informed by their experiences, and also brings back that income or any kind of incentive back to them, because we don't want to be profiting off of their culture. That's how we do our work. Biomimicry I could talk about for ages, but I'm going to let the next person speak. But I wanted to come to COP actually to work with people about how we can work on adapting to our current environmental issues and our future environmental issues through the lens of what nature has done, has been able to do, through and how we can mimic that, so that when we adapt, we don't mal-adapt to what we're creating. So there's a very big risk that now that we're talking about, and I know this is a huge part of CCT's talks, renewable energy is great, but if we constantly look at renewables but don't look at the processes that go into building that renewable energy, then it's exactly like looking at your fossil fuel industry only while it's in, like, while you're powering up your car, and forgetting that the back end of that is an entire industry that is polluting and extractive. So if we're looking at, for example, PV, then we're looking at an adaptation that requires a lot of mining. Meanwhile, if you look at plants, the way that they do PV is made out of carbohydrates and locally existing resources. So that's kind of the approach of biomimicry, is how do we learn from a plant how to do PV well, and not just stop at where the tech has stopped. So if you know any innovators that are interested in biomimicry, please talk to me after the talk.
Thank you for that. Manar, please.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Manar Ramadan, co-founder of Banlastic, and I'm also responsible for the R&D. As you said, the Banlastic's main mission is to ban single-use plastic, but beside this is to also activate the rest of the environmental laws that are already existing here in Egypt. But maybe we need more to make sure that they're really implemented and there is proper monitoring on that. So we do that by spreading awareness, by organizing beach cleanups. We interact with the beach visitors who are responsible for the main source for the marine litter. And we do different workshops on various environmental topics with the youth as well: plastic pollution, climate change, green spaces, and things like that. And we also connect with the policymakers to support what we do and what the rest of the environmental institutions in Egypt as well do towards having better environmental scene in Egypt. So talking about what we basically do about climate change is we are trying to, since we don't really have the luxury of changing the system, because that's a very, very big vision, a very long-term vision for everyone here. So at least we're working with the grassroots on changing the behavior of the consumption we have. So we encourage the people to think before they consume, to think if they really need this kind of packaging, if I can adopt more eco-friendly lifestyle. And that in itself, other than the climate change, it forces and it advocates for the cause to make the system change, which is a longer process than that. So this is the first thing. And the second thing is that since we are based in Alexandria, the biggest urban city in Egypt, we're also having, we're interacting with the fishermen all the time during our beach cleanups. So we do focused group discussions with them to explore more how they're really impacted by climate change. Because what we found through our focus group discussions with them, that what we find in the theory or in the papers is not really what's really happening on ground. So the traditional knowledge of these people is already adapting to the problems of climate change. They know, yes, the times of the how to say, the extreme weathers, they already know how it is, but since it's really happening now more strongly because of the climate change, they face a problem for that. We assume that extreme weather is a negative for them because they're not getting the kind of fish they're receiving or they used to fish for every day. But the reality, based on the research, got us very different results. So I think what we are doing with the fishermen, they're exploring the real problems of climate change, is helping us and for the rest of the community as well to propose right solutions for them that is not only based on research papers, but based on the people needs from what we receive. The last thing, which is we tried to explore more for the past year, since last January, is to encourage more contact with nature. So we're really, really loving what Daima is also doing for the same track, encouraging sustainable tourism and getting people more in nature connected. So youth and children, because when people can really resonate and touch about different aspects of nature, this will itself automatically help them to preserve what the natural resources we're surrounded with, whether it's the sea or in the farms. And like we encourage more discussions with the farmers to explore what they really face because of the climate change. When people hear that in their sustainable tourism experiences, they find like what they're hearing in the media is not really only in the media or not only in the papers, but it's also said by the very simple language of the locals, who are really like the most vulnerable communities for the climate change.
Thank you. And then I'm heading over to Reda, who will not only present RAID, but I think also the colleagues that she's brought with her.
Thank you so much. My name is Reda Ahmadin. I'm the program manager of RAID. RAID is the Arab Network for Environment and Development. It's established in Egypt in 1990, but it's a network of NGOs. It includes more than 300 members from the Arab region, from 17 Arab countries. But I'm really proud today that I'm here with our members from Egypt as well. We have Arab members and African members with us here at the COP. But I'm really happy that I'm supported with all the women leaders from RAID, from the different governorates, and not only from Cairo or one or two governorates. We have Sinai, we have Ismailia, we have Luxor, Asyut, Kafr al-Sheikh, Cairo, Port Said. It's an army of women and leaders, and actually they're not only representing their NGOs, but they are the leaders of their NGOs, and we're really proud of the work that they have done for the past few months when we launched our initiative in preparation for the COP. It was called our country hosts COP 27, or Baladna hosts COP 27. This initiative, actually, we took the opportunity of having the COP on our land to mobilize the people and the NGOs to be prepared for such event by knowing better, by understanding the issues of climate change more and more, by simplifying the climate change concepts and getting those concepts to the ground through the NGOs, because as you know, the NGOs, they are really the best arms to reach the grassroots and the local communities. So they have, since January, they have been doing a lot of work on the ground with the people, reaching out to hundreds and hundred thousands of people all over Egypt. raising their awareness on climate change through different activities, either by activities on the ground, awareness raising sessions, working with the farmers, with the women, with the universities, with the school children, with the fishermen. We are really proud, and they are here to present their work, and I'm really thankful to them that they have given me the chance to talk on their behalf. Actually, RAID is not only working on climate change issues, but all the issues related to the environment and sustainable development, either the agriculture, sustainable consumption and production, biodiversity conservation, water management, solid waste management, disaster risk reduction. So the main mandate of RAID is to build the capacities of the NGOs, the members, to be able to be actors and key actors among the other stakeholders. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then handing over to Salma and Very Nile.
Hi, hi everyone. I'm Salma Laani. It's such an honor to be here. So basically, what we're working on is to build like climate resilience through building economic resilience of marginalized communities. So as we're working with a community called and located in Kursai Island, which is one of the Nile Islands. We're trying to build, to create job opportunities that are sustainable, that would help sustain the living of those communities being endangered by a lot of problems as a result of climate change. But those job opportunities are actually closely tied to other environmental issues, as whether it's the fishermen who work on the Nile cleaning every day. So basically what we do is that we work with 60 fishermen who remove tons of plastic from the Nile on a daily basis. They sell to us this plastic. This gets recycled later on to create a complete value chain. And so far, like, they remove around 10 tons per month from the Nile River. But personally, like, what I'm involved in, which is women-led, and like it's women-led, women-managed, women co-production, co-creation, everything, is upcycling of plastic bags. Those plastic bags are not from the Nile. They collected from households and different organizations, which also helps us raise more awareness to the public. Those plastic bags are collected. They are changed into products like the one I have here, and it's actually one that carries a message of protecting the Nile River. And like what we do is that they upcycle those plastic bags, and this is like a way to get them a sustainable job opportunity, as it's a full-time job for 8 women, and we also train or develop capacities of 15 to 20 other women who are involved on project basis. So every hour any woman spends with us, they get paid for it somehow, to ensure that they have support to their support in general. But what makes it different is that we engage them in an empowering process, as we aim for it to be, but it's a co-production process, it's co-creation, co-management, in order to really build their resilience on the longer run, so that they're able to deal with the climate change effects that affect them being located on an island. And after all, water hits them first. Like, it's their source of income as fishermen, but still the rise of water, the rise of the sea, the rise of the water level affects everyone living on the island. It affects their livelihood. It affects their source of income, because it affects also the farmers living next to them. So that's basically what we're working on. And like recently, I've been being more engaged also on the community development aspect, where we're trying to close the cycle. So we've been working on the social and environmental and the business cycle all together, but we're trying to build even more projects that would raise the quality of life of the community, to improve their livelihood, which altogether considers all the climate change effects, whether this is in regard to waste management, in regard to education of the children, in regards to community gardening with Daima, in regards to all the different aspects. And yeah, so this is how we're, like, in a nutshell, how we're trying to deal with climate change issues. Yeah.
Thank you for this first round. I think 2 points that I would take away from this first round is we have a very diverse panel. You're all tackling different aspects of this big problem that we're facing. And I think a word that every single one of you has used is local communities. So really showing how your work is being bound back to the communities, closely connected. So I think that's an important aspect that each and every one of you have raised. I would now have some more targeted question to every one of you. I would like to start with Manar. Manar, you've been a co-founder, so you've really been starting from zero with your own organization in Alexandria. And so in this process, what have been some of the barriers or the obstacles that you have faced, and how did you manage to overcome them?
Okay, I think when we started in 2018, I remember then when we were saying we want to work on a cause like banning single-use plastic, which is also concerning changing policies. Everyone was telling us you have to move to Cairo so that you can make this happen. Because all the attention is being to the capital, all the policymakers are there. You cannot communicate with the policymakers without moving to Cairo. But we challenged this and we said, no, the problem is in Alexandria and we have to stay in Alexandria because it's on the coast. And we are the ones who are seeing the plastic pollution all the time. There, it's definitely there in the Nile as well, but it's differently infected the Mediterranean and our shores and the biodiversity we have in the sea. And we took this as a challenge that we have to make the movement of plastic ban coming from where the problem is sourced, from the sea or from Alexandria. That was definitely challenging in the beginning because all the important meetings with the policymakers was there in Cairo. All the suppliers for our alternative products was also there. And this is the reason why we started by producing our eco-friendly bags with cooperating with one of the factories that is also led by women and on the fringes of Alexandria to support also their income. So we try to make our products Egyptian and we try to make our products also from Alexandria to make sure that, or to give an example, basically that still like very leading projects can still come out of the capital or out of Cairo. And this doesn't mean that it's also our city, but like through our workshop with different governors as well and interacting with youth from south to north to west Egypt, we see a lot of potential coming out of these cities, but with the mindset that the centralization we have here in Egypt, I think this needs to break. And I think Banlastic and other great organizations as well are giving an excellent example that those who are affected by the problems, they should lead the solutions as well. So centralization is one of the first problem, and in terms it comes the next problem, which is funding, because again, funding is also centralized like the policies as well. We still get support from other organizations, yes, but this does not cancel the fact that all the attention is being given to big cities. Still, our city is a big city considered like compared to the rest of Egypt, but we wish that this could encourage the attention to move also to those other communities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good link going back to Reda, because with Alexandria we're still looking at a very urban context. However, Reda, where your network is working, is often very rural context. Can you share with us a bit how the work differs, what are the challenges there, and how your organization is maybe working differently than an organization that is based in a big city?
Well, yes, Egypt is diversified in geographical, from the geographical nature and also from the culture nature as well. So when we're talking about the challenges, and even this was really clear when we started our campaign or initiative, when we dealt with different NGOs and the different governorates. We realized more and more the different challenges from the urban areas to the rural areas. And not only urban and rural, we cannot ignore the Bedouin areas as well. And I'm very proud that we have Sinai here with us as well. So, the different challenges, this obliged us to, through the work of the NGOs, to be diversified to tackle those challenges. So when we're talking about Upper Egypt, for example, and the rural areas there, we're having activities like biogas, like recycling of agricultural wastes, like energy saving, like water conservation, more and more on education and health problems related to the climate change. But when we go to the urban areas, we're talking about energy saving, but in a different way somehow, and using more and more solar energies and energy saving bulbs. When we're talking about sustainable transport and promoting the use of bikes, of course we're focusing on banning the single-use plastics as well. And Sinai, with the challenges facing the women there, due to the culture, but they have overgrazing, and they are depending on herding, and due to the climate change impacts, and this was really reduced. So we're trying to have alternative solutions for the women there to have more sustainable income through training them on traditional handicrafts and so on. So the activities differs from one area to the other due to the challenges, and due to the challenges specifically facing the women in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Speaking of local identities, local culture, I think that's a good keyword to go back to Farah. You've already been sharing before how in your work you're drawing specifically on the cultural and natural heritage of Egypt and of the local context you're working in. Can you tell us something that we can learn from this approach, especially looking here at the big international conference? How can we bring these local cultural identities into the global work?
It's very difficult. Honestly, one of the very glaring obvious ones today is access, because a lot of people were not able to bring local communities to come attend. We're very grateful that our partners and people in the CSO community were able to find. Ra'id is already registered with the UNFCCC, but it's one of the very few ones. And having partners that could help sponsor, bring local community members like themselves so that they could listen and exchange with people, that's definitely one thing. The other thing is where the way we work with local communities, we've been exposed to how much storytelling is very much a part of getting people to connect. I think this is definitely very common in indigenous people's collectives in general, and I think there's a big stress on that in the pavilions that are relevant to that. But that does not penetrate into most other pavilions and most other side events, and these stories need to be told. Yesterday we were at, I was personally at a BBC documentary screening that brought stories from Iraq about how gas flaring is affecting local communities in southern Iraq. Things like that get very low visibility. Things like that are very important because these are the people on the bottom line that are very much affected. They are not the cause of any of the environmental issues that we are facing, but they are the primary, I guess the primary payers of the consequences, because everything that they rely on is so close to nature. They don't have the tools and the protection of not always, yani, but of the type of housing that they're going to need, of cooling systems. So bringing people on from heat-stressed environments and actually giving them the tools for them to be the ones that represent themselves would be something I would have liked to see. Unfortunately, it requires a lot more time in order to build that. And the knowledge that I would recommend in that case is that the way that traditional knowledge exists in general is through a process of shadowing and apprenticeship. And I think that would be very good, that making sure that our generation of activists that are from indigenous cultures, that have the ability to represent their cultures, are the ones that have the time and are paid for the time, where they can have apprentices from different communities, where they can bring these people to attend and talk and bring their stories out so that they can represent themselves. And I think that that would make places like COP much more diverse, much more representative, much less focused on what large corporations and what large regimes are interested in promoting, and instead, and it'll bring things like talking about loss and damage much clearer into focus, talking about adaptation, true adaptation, not building new industries that we're going to become hyper reliant on and set in to become the focus of the conversation.
Thank you for that. Salma, you've been sharing before already a little bit of what your organization is doing. Now I'd be interested to hear in how you're doing that. Specifically, I would like to know what are the tools or the way that you use to gain support for your work, both from the public but also from the communities that you mentioned, with the fishermen, the people you're working with on the ground.
I'll start by the women, because this is how it all started, and it all started with a dialogue. Like in the beginning, it was quite challenging to convince women to come and work with us, but we had early believers. There were 4 who believed in us from the start, and those were the trailblazers as well. They are the ones who started this with us, and it started all with having an ongoing dialogue, being frank, being transparent from both sides completely. No empty promises. We told them we don't know where this is heading. We'll just start and then see together. Let's move month by month. Let's move. It was even week by week in the beginning. And then as we evolved, we grew together. And this is what brought us the other women later on and brought us more community members engaged. And now a lot of women come to us asking, we want more job opportunities. In the beginning, this was challenging because it was also a change in culture. It was a change in perception, and for them to understand that they're not here to just do something and leave, but they're here to get empowered and to co-produce and to co-create and to design with us those pieces and to create something that carries a message that goes to COP, even if they're not able to come, to deliver a message that they own with us. It was quite challenging in the beginning, but then I guess it was all about the conversation, and it was all about sitting together, talking all the time. Now, as the project scales, this has become a challenge. It's become harder, to be honest, to have this ongoing dialogue every day. But as the base was on trust, it's purely trust, then now it's becoming that they pass on the trust to others. So now they are managing subunits within the project with us. So a woman, of course, from Corsaya is the one managing the cash, the petty cash. Another one is managing the inventory. And some of them are only 18 years old. So, and they're doing that while being at school. So we're not compromising their education for that. And even some of them decided to go and continue their education by going to university after working with us. It's a challenge. But because I was also doing my master's and they saw me trying to do both, so they were sort of, inspiring each other. They're inspiring me on one end, and so that's the tool. It's basically something that's evolving by practice. There's no guidebook. It's just pure participation as much as we could. Again, participation is idealistic, but we try to do it as much as we can. For the public, it's using the products and the story of the woman actually to raise public awareness. So it starts with a product that appeals to people, to me, like as managing the shop. And then when the product appeals to them and they buy it, they want to know more about it. So it's by making something that they would like to see and they would like to buy. So we're using the product as a tool to raise public awareness. Like even here, we're trying to advocate for a couple of requests like that we've talked about before that are related to achieving a greener ecosystem in general. And we've used the bags or things that we're distributing for people to grab people's attention to then be able to talk about that and then mention the story of the woman behind this and then raise more awareness on Nile communities, Nile islands that are at risk. So I mean that this is how we're trying to tell the story, and also by engagement, like we're trying to engage people as much as possible through direct application. So we host a lot of workshops where people upcycle, where people are engaged in the process in itself. And through this, we establish another type of conversation. And when they meet the women and try to engage with them, they understand that there's a common ground that we can both achieve, but that it needs time, it needs patience. So this is how we're doing it. I guess.
Thank you for sharing
Thank
that. Now, for the final question, I would like to go back to Amira. Dr. Hen had mentioned before, here we have from the German side 3 female ministers incoming here to the COP. Also here in Egypt, your Ministry of Environment is being led by Dr. Yasmin Fouad. So we also have a woman here in a key position referring to environmental politics. From your experience as a policymaker, what are your views about the participation of women here in Egypt in environmental politics? What is the situation? Where maybe would you like to see it going in the next few years?
Actually, and frankly speaking, we have now more women into politics. We have the highest representation of women in the Egyptian parliament ever in its history. But I don't favor talking about numbers. I always seek quality. This is number one. Number two, on what different policy levels, not only in the parliament, neither as ministers, it's at the private sector, it's at the NGOs, it's at the municipalities, despite we don't have them now. But it's about the presence of women in every single touch point of what all was related to climate change issues and environmental issues. And for this, I still see we are out of the picture, because look at the picture of the presidents of the states which were taken at the very beginning of COP. It hurted me. As I remember, there was only like 1 woman out of the top leaders. So yes, women are being put into positions, but it's still very much underrepresented. I always seek for empowering women, because if we see Paris Agreement, for example, the architectures of Paris Agreement and the main pushers for it, they were mainly women. So now they have a crucial part in fixing the planet. And even in the negotiation rooms, I rarely do see the representing number and quality of women negotiators in the negotiation rooms. So definitely they are underrepresented. And see the vulnerable communities, what the ladies have been talking about. When we talk about climate crisis, women are on the top vulnerability array, and they suffer a lot losing their jobs. Female farmers, they would lose their jobs as well and their sources of income. So the vulnerability of women is way so higher, and that's why they should be even more represented in every touch point of policy making inside the different societies. So to your question, yes, we have the representation, but for me, it's still way underrepresented.
Thank you. I have many more questions to all of you, but I also want to give our audience the chance to ask some questions. So I would like to give one final question to all of you, and I hope that you can give a very short and concise answer, and then we would head over to our panel. We've been hearing from you now the work that you've been doing as a female trailblazers. I think the idea here of this panel is to also bring this out to help other women that are aspiring to do the same. So I would like to ask you, what advice would you give to the next generation of female leaders in working in the environmental scene that's maybe even sitting here on our panel? I start with you, Amira.
Be resilient, inspire others, help each other, cooperate, seek to learn and seek to reach out to others for what you have been learning, because I see also that there is still not cooperative channels enough for women to come together and to move the challenges and to do the narrative regarding climate change. So connect, stay resilient, empower each other, and you should jump in the scene and do something, because it's everyone's responsibility.
Thank you. Salma, please.
To actually to remain dedicated and to stand up whenever you fall, because this would happen a lot, especially for women. And I think also to stay grounded, like remember to connect to nature and use nature as a way to empower, to give you power, because that's the only way to manage it.
Thank you. Farah.
I think both of them covered exactly what I would have said. The only thing I would have added to yours was connect to nature. Find a way to recharge. Find people that inspire you,
Very important.
and take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Reda.
Well, actually, women is when it comes to their families, they are the decision makers, even if they're not decision makers in some positions. So I think getting better informed, better educated in related to environment and to what's going on around them, not only on the closer surrounding, but for example, I'm really happy that they had the chance to come here and to have the chance to exchange their experiences and their stories with other international and global organizations. So I think getting more and more educated and well informed about what's going on the global level and on the regional level, not only on the local level, is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Manar, please.
I think the women in Egypt, they're having a lot of potentials that are still under-discovered. And I believe that we need, as a community, to reassure each other and to validate these potentials so that it comes to light.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for that. I would now hand over to our audience and to see if there are any questions that you would like to ask. And I hope we have a microphone in the back. Okay, even better. Then, yes, please.
Thank you very much for this interesting session. Actually, I was very excited by what they said here. My simple question, as this session focused mainly on the woman-led solutions to climate change. So I heard in the other session room there that there must be integrated between women and men. So could you think the men contributed to some activities somewhere in woman-led solution to climate change? If yes, what kind of activities would you suggest to have a cooperation or integration between women and men?
Thank you so much for that question. Who from our panel would like to take? You
I mean, you have a
that Manar
co-founder
is
and he's
being
not a
assigned.
female.
Okay, I think that's an interesting question, because I don't think a session with that title is saying that women are the only one who are leading solutions.
Absolutely.
But it's just trying to say that we are also part of the solution. Like we're equally contributing together to the problem that the world is all facing. We're not saying that only women are having the solution. So already our men are doing great job in polluting since they are leading the economy more or less.
Women too, حياتك.
Women too, for sure. But maybe like this integration needs to happen for sure, because we are both responsible for the problem of the climate change. So, yeah.
I think honestly, men are doing great. Manar is one of two founders. Several co-founders. There are men on her team. I have fewer and fewer men on my team because the work that we do is not very lucrative and therefore does not provide a lot of income. And I think it's unfair because I know a lot of men that would love to do this, but there is a lot of pressure put on men to be the sole providers in their families, which is unfair for men. And honestly, when we say women-led, we are not trying to push out the men. We are just trying to understand how to support each other, because being a woman in the fields that we're in is often very difficult. There are a lot of very conservative men, أكيد حضرتك عارف, that do not like dealing with women and will not deal with me at all when we work in the field. And that is something and a challenge that I have to work with. And sometimes it's a challenge that I respect because it's part of their culture, and I'm okay with delegating or handing over to the men on my team so that they can take over. We have no problem partnering with men. We do have a really big problem being steamrolled by men, and I think you'd think that's fair. Yeah. No, we invite men to share solutions that we can then champion, since they seem to have less time.
I have just
Yes, Amira.
maybe on a final note, just you were asking about the contribution. I think no one on the panel didn't have men in their team one way or another. It's just women-led and not women-exclusive solutions.
exactly.
So they are there. The thing is that the number of women leaders in climate, they are very few, and we want them to be more. So there is no such like conflict or exclusion or anything on the contrary.
وبعدين if you're excluded once in a while, يعني it's okay, let go.
Why the project started with the shop was also a way to integrate women. Like also sometimes we need women-led solutions to integrate women in the process, because we were all fishermen working and we needed to offer job opportunities for women. So sometimes we need to highlight women to create the balance, and then after that we can integrate. So it's still important to highlight always women. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Actually,
Eda, you
we see the cooperation and the integration in many fields, like the field of agriculture, where Dr. Hassan is saying that in agriculture, without the farmers, there are several products, and the agriculture production is done by women, and those complement each other. So I think there are many fields that they complement in contributing to the solutions.
Yeah.
But even like my colleagues have said, women-led solutions or women leading some way or another is good as well. It's not that bad.
But yeah, I agree, Amatan, because a lot of the time we pretend like there are no roles for women outside of the city especially, and that's not my experience of it at all. I'm sure that's not yours.
No, I believe that this influenced the coming generation, because they need to see, the children, they need to see that the women, they're taking a role, they're leading, in their activities and so on, because this makes them really, not close to the ideas that the only men who are leading. Yes, they should be educated more and more that women have a role and respect this role in the society.
And it diversifies the types of roles that they see are possible to be as a woman. So it was a lot of the time, the women that we meet on our journeys are women that are working in handicrafts, teachers. Very few of them are entrepreneurs. A lot of them are farmers or are working on value-added products from agriculture. But there aren't there are more engineers, there are more innovators, not as many as there could be. But it's also even, by the way, this is not even on the level of just their locals. Even the like private school kids that we have, the same applies to them. To them, a woman-led enterprise is something that they have not seen. A full board of women is something that they have not seen. It means that they're not constantly looking to their male counterparts to lead the charge, but they have no problem with partnering with them. But like, it's not a waiting game anymore,
Yeah. Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions from the audience? If not, Thomas, please.
Behind you.
I have a question to Ms. Saba. What do you think why it's so difficult to implement laws against law for banning single-use plastic bags? Because I see the example of Kenya, for example. They banned it, and it's even a crime there to use it or to deal with that. So why do you think it's so difficult? In Germany, it was also very difficult to ban it. It took years to implement the law. So what do you think? What is the reason for that?
Because there is a conflict of interest if we are talking about developing countries. So the amount of factories which still need to be built, the technologies which are used, which are quite outdated versus those used in the global north, we still have such resistance towards carbon tax because already they need facilitations, they need more relief of taxation other than fostering any other tax on them. So there is such a debate all the time. If you are asking about the bill regarding climate change and resilience towards the climate change. But on another note, for the food waste, maybe because I come from the opposition, that it's not working until now. But I'm joking. It's actually been moving, but the legislative process all across the world is slow. Maybe in some countries it's faster than the others, but we really have like a very long legislative process starting from the bill to be drafted properly and the discussions with all the stakeholders, then it's passed inside the parliament itself, which could take like 5 years to be out. But the more good the policy brief is and the more concrete your research and your point is raised and the phrasing of the legislative proposal which you are proposing is good, this helps to make it faster, if I answered your question.
Thank you for that.
Can we ask questions?
I think we have a hand raised here. Maybe we start first with a question from the audience.
I want to know what the ladies here do.
اسمحوا أكلم عربي يعني؟
اتفضلي.
شكرا. أنا سوسن حجاب، جمعية حقوق المرأة السنوية شمال سيناء العريش. احنا اللي فخورين ان احنا جينا مع رائد اسم على مسمى. الحقيقة انه يعني انا عايزة اتكلم على تجربة المرأة في شمال سيناء، انه المرأة بتتأثر تأثر خطير جدا وكبير جدا بتغير المناخ. التأثير يمكن يعني أكيد حضراتكم عارفين، على سبيل المثال لما زوجة الصياد بيقعد عاطل عن العمل بسبب إنه ما فيش صيد لسبب أو لآخر، وإحنا يعني بنمر بظروف صعبة جدا، وأكيد اللي اشتغل معنا عارف الزوجة هي اللي بتتحمل المسؤولية بالكامل، سواء عن طريق اللي إحنا بنقوم بيه في الجمعية، بندربها على الحرف اليدوية، بنجيب لهم حاجات تعوض التوقف عن التوقف عن العمل وجلب الرزق. كمان المرأة بتتحمل انه الظروف اللي حصل جفاف مثلا بيتنقلوا من حتة لحتة.
Okay. I can.
خليها تكمل الجملة بس يا مسفى.
أنا عايزة أقول إنه المرأة في شمال سيناء كنموذج هي امرأة قوية جدا، هي امرأة بتساعد زوجها في كل الأحوال، هي بتتأثر بالتغيرات المناخية بشكل كبير جدا لأنه هي العبء بيقع عليها.
Women in North Sinai, they are very strong women. They are a good example for a strong woman. They help really their men. And as we can see that climate change has a very strong impact on women in North Sinai.
هي المرأة السيناوية جزء أو هي يعني زيها زي المرأة في كل محافظات مصر، هي بتشيل عبء كبير جدا جدا. إذا حصل جفاف هي بتتحمل النتائج المترتبة على ده. إحنا عندنا ما يسمى بالارتحال أو التنقل، حصل جفاف في منطقة فبتنتقل لمنطقة أخرى فيها وسائل الحياة.
The women in North Sinai, they are suffering a lot from dryness.
They are the ones that graze, and therefore they are the ones that are most responsible. They have to move
from one part to the other due to the dryness that is caused by climate change. شكرا لحضرتك.
So no question?
شكرا.
Thank you.
Thank you for that input from the
Intervention.
ground. I think that's also what we've been speaking about before. We have different perspectives, showing also like the local problems and the local solutions. So thank you for that.
Actually, I wanted to ask her, ايه الحل طيب؟ Like المرأة هي اللي بتاخد العبء ده، وبالذات لما يكون في حر فظيع هو بيجبرك على ان انت ما بقاش في حتة ان انت تقدري ترعي فيها. ايه الحلول اللي انتوا عرفتوا تلاقوها؟
Would you mind to also quickly share with us?
Yeah, I'm asking what the solutions that they come up with for that are, because she's sharing the problem, and I'm sure they have solutions that they've worked on.
احنا يعني هو لو اتيح لنا المجال نتكلم عن شغل الجمعيه مع النساء على مدى 25 سنه، الحقيقه ان احنا عملنا شغل كبير جدا جدا. يمكن من ضمن الحاجات المهمه جدا اللي عملناها معاهم هي تعليمهم ازاي تبقى هي ست منتجه اينما كانت. كمان دلوقتي احنا شغالين في موضوع الاستقرار، ازاي ان احنا نعمل مجتمع اخضر بمناسبة الزراعة. احنا في سبيلنا ان احنا نزرع اكتر من 100,000 شجرة. الشجر بيعمل على، والزراعة بشكل عام بتعمل على الاستقرار، لانه الشجر ده حياة زي ما احنا عارفين يعني.
So she said that
I
you want me to
in our if you allow me the floor, I can shortly talk about my association. Like, we are helping women. We are working with a lot of women. We are teaching them how to be productive, as well as we are concentrating on agriculture, as agriculture is one of the base elements that help for stabilization and being set in one area. We also work on planting 100 trees that we are doing currently.
100,000 trees.
أقول بس بمناسبة إن إحنا في الجناح الألماني إنه إحنا أول مشروع، إحنا الجمعية 1995 أول مشروع حقيقي فعلي إحنا عملناه مع GTZ كان في شمال سيناء، تعليم السيدات الخياطة اللي هو مستمرين فيه لحد النهاردة مئات السيدات.
The first project we have done, we have been established 1995, and the first project we were working on was with the GIZ.
Thank you for that. Maybe later on we'll still have the chance to discuss a bit between all of, well, at least all of us who speak Arabic directly. I would like to chance to ask one more question that we didn't discuss yet. So Farah has been sharing with us how, or like, ideas on how to bring local knowledge up to this level of international negotiations to the COP. What I would like to be interested is, how do we do it the other way around? So we are discussing a lot of global approaches to solving climate change, etc. But of course this should not just stay at this level. So Reda, I would like you to know, what do you propose? How do we translate these international discussions on global warming, climate change, also back to the ground, to the people that are affected by it?
Actually, this is our main work through the NGOs, through the members. That we as RAID, as the secretariat, we through our partners, we simplify this. We explain those international and global conventions. All that has been going around to the civil society, and through those civil society organizations, it goes to the local communities. And this is what we've been doing, and we have succeeded to do so, especially focusing with on the education sector at the universities and the schools. And 100,000 of people were involved in the initiative, and now, after hearing at the beginning, when they heard when we asked them what is climate change, they said, yes, we hear about it in the news. We read about it somewhere, but they didn't know how this climate change concepts are really related to their daily life, and how they could contribute through the simple practices to confront those challenges. And we have a very simple code of conduct on how to face climate change with very simple practices, and we simplified this code of conduct through several like songs and competitions at schools and so on. And they were really enthusiastic to sign this code of conduct, to feel committed and more committed. So I think education is really important. And of course, our role as civil society on the national level is very important to transfer this knowledge to the other civil society on the local level.
Thank you for sharing that insight with us. I'd like to look once again at the audience if we have any more questions. I can see a hand raised here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for Ghada Ahmadin. I want to share with you a practice in Sharm El-Sheikh in Egypt. We already, I like your speak or talking about solutions. Every place and women especially know problems and know how to solve and know how to do. Maybe we have problems in two sides. First, finance. Second, gender. But we know how to solve it. I just want to tell you that we are in Sharm El-Sheikh solve a problem for women by a project about how to help women to make small project from the home to help her children. Second, to use food wastes. And from food wastes, we can save energy and save time and save money and help environment and help the people in all over the world. All saving in these sides help us all to help women's and men's for the speech or talking of Dr. Hassan Shar, and help men's also. So women can help and can save. I think this is the idea. Not what is problem and not what is a solution for problem. We know, every place know how to solve.
Thank you for that. Any one of you want to comment or react to that? No?
Just a very quick comment. I'm very proud to see women coming from different geographical places in Egypt, coming with their solutions, with their own confrontation of the different challenges. And this just proves that resilience is there and that challenges could be overcome. So I'm really happy to see all these beautiful, resilient faces and just continue what you're doing always.
Just support that.
I actually could add to that. I'm very resistant of being put on a panel about women because it's not how I identify. I'm one of very privileged women that had very few, and I'm a very loud woman. I don't give a lot of space for people to shut me up. But I'm very glad that I was here today because I got to learn about all of your different initiatives and got to see some of your beautiful, beautiful entrepreneurs. And I'm looking forward to learning more about what you're doing on the ground and how we can collaborate potentially.
Yes, I hope so. I hope this panel will also be a space for you to get together, get to know each other, find new ideas. That would be the best possible outcome. I take the floor then and I ask one more question to Manar. We have civil society here on the panel, but of course with Amira we also have policymakers on the panel. So I would like to know from you, from your perspective as a social enterprise, what are measures, policies that could make a difference for your work, or have made a difference for your work, and what are things that you'd like to tell here Amira as a national policy maker, or also the delegates that might be here in the audience? What are policy measures you would like to see to help and facilitate your work?
Okay, maybe let's start with what has already been done in that part of banning single-use plastic and environmental preservation. Again, when we started in 2018, no one was talking about the banning single-use plastic. It was a cause that was not there on the table of discussion. But I think today, with having 2 cities in Egypt in which plastic is banned, talking about South Sinai and the Red Sea, like there are policies now, like not really implemented as we wish that they would be, but at least it came into the table of discussion. And for us, we think that that's a great win. That's to start with. And definitely also like with the waste management law that has been just issued a couple of months back, 202, it's really supporting the cause as well. But what we wish more to see in the coming hopefully months, not years, more access to the green spaces, talking about the public parks, because this helps like engaging the people more and making them people friendly, ready to receive the guests and the people as well. It strengthens the tie between the humans, the people, and the nature. And this is the easiest way how can the public contribute into the nature and environment preservation as well, and allowing us as civil society to support in that mission of having access to the public gardens and the public parks that are already there in different cities in Egypt.
If I could add to that, I want to just clarify that our role as civil society and entrepreneurs is to support the role of government, especially in things like this. Having public spaces like Wadi Digla is important. Privatizing them as an entire, it's a protectorate, making it privately run, that is not our capacity. But having partnerships with government on how to train rangers or how to create space for education or how to monetize in different ways, this is stuff that we would love to help consult on. But we do not have the capacity as small enterprises and consultancies to run an entire NGO, and we will never have that. But a partnership is something that we're always open to. A discussion is always something that we're open to. And that's what we want to, someone like Amira can always bring that and put us in contact with the right people. And we are happy to do that. But it's very important that people do not misunderstand what our capacities are.
I think, sorry if I may add, but we need also measures that ensure that locals are also always engaged. Like that's a starting point. Like if we put a measure that sets that local communities and local organizations have to be taken into account in any policy and that they have to be part of the decision-making process, then all of this somehow would be resolved because they would be engaged in the process. And like I've been calling for this for the past few days, and I keep saying loop the communities in, loop the locals in, solutions from within. Like they are messages we've been using from the common request to try to advocate for that, because it's a starting point, I think, for everything that we've been mentioning. I believe that this is a thing that I'm calling for if I can.
The common request is a great example of female and men led and community, the CSAO community being linked with each other and coming up with something that is cohesive and things that we truly believe in and are happy to support. And we've been having a lot of support in getting that across to government and to funders, but we're very happy with that. If you guys could post the link, we would be very much obliged.
I can just need to add something on what Manar has mentioned. She mentioned banning the use of plastics in Hurghada and South Sinai, but I would like to add that in Fayoum as well. Through one of our members, they have implemented a project on the Fayoum free of plastic, and actually, due to the work that the NGO has done, the governor there has issued a decree as well on banning the use of plastic, but it couldn't be like all over the governorates, but at least in the protected areas in Fayoum, which is huge. Yes, and in the big hypermarkets and the pharmacies, which is huge consumers of plastics. So we were very proud of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, you have a question?
There's a lady in the back that also has a question.
Okay, maybe as you've already been asking one question, I would like to hand the word to the lady in the back, but I would kindly invite you to afterwards maybe come up to us and discuss in this round if this is...
Faddali.
Okay. Maybe we first ask the question and then later have an exchange here. Thank you so much.
Hello, this is Zainab. I'm a radio announcer in the state radio service. And I thank you so much, all of you, for that wonderful, very inspiring conversation. And as women, I would like to know if you have been inspired by other women. Who are they and what inspired you?
I think that is a fantastic question to wrap up the panel, also looking at the time. So, handing over to you, who have been the women that have inspired you or keep inspiring you? Amira, you want to start?
Many, actually, many. And it comes from the top of the power level. Laurence Tobiana herself, I know her, and she was one of Paris Agreement architectures, and I know her, and she has inspired me into parliamentary action. But also the people who has these kind of inspiring experiences of running their challenges and confronting them. They inspire us because we have a role to do as legislators, to empower the green spaces which you have been talking about, to do something regarding the insurance, that there is more sense towards nature, towards these green and sustainable solutions. If you are to build a new city, it should be a sustainable one, and it's our role to push towards opening up the space for civil society as well to do its part. So this kind of connection also between the authorities, between the legislators and between the NGOs, it has some missing links which I think I should keep working on, but I have the inspiration down top and top down all the time.
Thank you. Farah?
I was very lucky to grow up with a working mom. She was running her own part of my grandfather's company, and that's how I saw working women. She was cool, and she was a working woman, so I was very lucky. The other thing is, each stage that I've gone through, I've been very lucky to have very strong women leading, but completely by accident, very strong women leading my like our teams, whether when I was working with Not Mahrousa, Jackie Camille, who's the managing director and has been for a very long time, or when I went and I was a client of Daima's before I became a partner, and there were these two biologists that were very cool, very capable, and very open about it in very different ways, in one very loud one and one very gentle one. So I and then meeting Hela Barakat, who's an ethnobotanist. So on your journey, you will find different women that will inspire you in different ways and let you get close to them. I'm very grateful to all of these people. And of course, the women here are...
Manar.
If I would say that what got me here is believing and leading, I would say that believing, like Farah as well, I had a great mom that came from a less privileged community, but she worked so hard in her education. She traveled, she became economically empowered, and I think this is like she made me believe in what I'm doing. She was supporting all the time in what I'm doing. And talking about leading, I would recall my girl guiding leader, because she was really inspiring to me, how she's really making a change in raising generations that believe in themselves and their dreams, even when like talking about kids or talking about youth. So that was also like very inspiring to me. So I don't think we really need to say or talk about big names that we always see in the media, but as I said earlier, that in Egypt, there is a lot of potential in the women that are inspiring all the time, whether on family levels or also on institutional levels.
Thank you. Reda, Salma, we have 1 minute.
Okay. I have two women in my life. Actually, my grandmom, who recycled everything at home. So, so like all the grandmas.
Every home, yeah.
So this was very inspiring. And I was really lucky to work with Dr. Nadia Makram Abid, the first Minister of Environment, and she was a woman, and I was really lucky to be her personal assistant while she was at the ministry, and I saw how much she was really keen to increase the green areas and to depollute everywhere. So I was really inspired. I was really lucky. I learned a lot from her while being at the ministry. Thank you.
Salma, and I kindly ask our pavilion team to give me 1 more minute before cutting us
Yeah,
off.
it has always been my mom because of her persistence, but also like now I'm learning every day from the women of Kursaya actually. They go through a lot, but they're managing to push us all forward. So it's them, yeah. And I am keeping it short.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Really, I want to thank all of you for being here, for this fantastic discussion, for sharing the work that you're doing. I am really sorry we are already over time, so if that is okay, we would wrap up here now. I thank you all for the discussion. I thank you for the question. I also thank our partners and supporters, specifically the Ministry of Environment, that we've been working on the Cairo Climate Talks. And for the questions that haven't yet been answered, I invite you, stay here at the pavilion. It's a place for exchange and discussion, and I hope that's what we're going to see here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.